So I've waved everybody off. They've all gone off for their 70 minutes easy run in the rain. It is pretty miserable out there. I decided not to go this morning. I'm still recovering from the marathon. My chest still isn't great, so just sacked it off this morning. It's a good thing about this camp as well, is that if you, for any reason, can't do the planned running activities, which was the session yesterday and the group run this morning, it's no problem. This weekend is all about learning and developing your skills. So now I'm going to wait for the guys to come back. And then I think we've got Matt Bergin coming in today, and we're learning all about injury prevention, biomechanics, with a couple of seminars and I think a practical workshop, so that'll be good fun too. But yeah, for now I think I might go and get a coffee. Runners returning from the wild, eating their breakfast.
So yeah, the running started first, and then just I think through so many injuries and experience of me seeing physios, I kind of then just naturally fell into the profession. And now I think my running complements the physio quite nicely. So today we're going to be talking, it's kind of a two-parter in terms of the presentations that I'm going to give you. The first part is a little bit shorter, so we're going to focus more on just some of the basic kind of training errors, some of the really obvious mistakes I see people making with just the basics, like your training, how intense people are training, your footwear, all of those kind of really basic things. And then after lunch, we're then going to look at more the kind of the more sciencey, more the specifics of like the biomechanics, the gait, what I look for when I'm assessing someone. What I'm actually looking for is like things like your foot strike, your cadence, what is the relevance of all of that, and when would I actually consider maybe making a change with the way someone does run. But then you do get the less common ones, your upper leg pains, your lower back stuff, and your hip and pelvic issues as well. And in terms of the types of injuries I see, it can be anything from soft tissue, bone, tendon, they're kind of your three main ones, but then I do see a lot of even kind of more neural, so a lot of nervy type issues, people that might not be getting the big like sciatica type symptoms where they're getting pins and needles and numbness and tingling, but they might be getting a leg that feels weak, or they don't feel like they have much power through one leg that they're running, and they can't really pinpoint the pain, it's just there somewhere. So it can be very specific and almost lacks any kind of pattern. So you do get an array, and it's very rare in the clinic, especially with the runners, that I get anyone coming in that has a textbook Achilles injury or a textbook plantar fascia injury.
I suppose we've all been there where you've got, like, say, a little niggle in your knee. Is it bad to, but it's not stopping you from running, for example, it's just, for example, if you do like a lunge, you can feel like, oh, my left knee's niggling a little bit. Mm-hmm. Is it bad to ignore that, or like what would you say?
So depending on types of issues, and I'll touch on it later on in terms of the different types of pains that you might experience, is it like a sharp stabbing pain, is it a bit of a tightness that after a few minutes gets a bit easier, depending on what kind of symptoms you might be getting. Yeah. Would then determine whether it's okay to run on, whether I'll be telling you to have some time off, because the other issue I find with maybe physios and other professionals that aren't used to working with runners is that you get an injury and the first thing you're told is just to stop running. And often with things like any tendon issue, whether it's an Achilles, a knee, if you stop running it just makes things a lot harder to then get back into the running, because tendons like load. So if I can keep someone ticking over doing 2 or 3 runs a week instead of 4 or 5 runs a week when they've got a bit of an injury, they're going to actually be far better off doing that than if I just completely stop them running. So it's just, things like the sudden sharp pains that are very localised, I'd be saying don't try and run through that if it's making you limp. Whereas if it's a bit of a tightness in a calf that after a few minutes eases out and you pretty much forget about it, and then within that next 24 hours it's not then coming back again, that kind of stuff is fine to work with, because clearly if you're going to stop running every time you get a bit of an ache or a pain, you're never actually going to be running enough to improve. So it's just knowing which bits are okay to run through and which bits you actually need to address by rest, see someone, or is it okay just to do a bit of stretching, a bit of foam rolling, that kind of stuff. Tendons like variation in load, so it's one day running a bit slower, one day running a bit quicker. And look, what you often find with some of the people that are newer to running, they will only ever run steady, or they'll only ever run slowly or quicker. And you find that the body just gets very used to running those same things, and then you suddenly change anything, and then it kind of flares up. So it's just about looking at all of those little bits. If you're doing some sessions or like a tempo run, you're going to go in probably a different shoe again. So again, that's going to vary the load that your foot's experiencing. Different shoes, different loads, different paces, different loads. So just varying everything. Equally, if you're running in just one pair of shoes for your steady runs, it's going to last anywhere from 350 to 500 miles. If you use 2 of those shoes, you're just going to, same thing with each shoe, but it'll just last double the amount of time. So in terms of how many shoes you're going to end up getting through, it'll be the exact same, but you're just running on 2 shoes that are slightly fresh, they're just kind of breaking down at the same rate. So in terms of the steady running shoes, I think there's probably minimal difference, but you just find that you will last longer because you're in 2 pairs rather than 1. And if you're running in 2 completely different pairs, then you are getting different loads.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah, 2 different pairs I quite like to do now. So I have one pair of shoes that's just like a neutral shoe. I then have another pair that's a bit more structured, and then I have the shoes that I would wear on like my session days, which are a bit more minimalist. And even after them, I can feel like my calves and my feet have worked a bit harder. But I think my feet and ankles actually like having that variation in those different types of loads. For me, functional movement patterns, just doing them here, chances are they're going to be the same, if not even more pronounced, when we then come to do it actually in a game when you're running. So, the first few tests we're going to do, the 3 tests we're going to do. First of all is like a little single leg squat, that's the first one. Then we're going to go through a single leg calf raise test, and then the final one will be a single leg hop test. So there's a page for each, and that'll be massively
That one's good.
Kind of a strength test. So standing up against the wall for balance, hands against the wall, one leg at a time. I want you up and down, all the way up, all the way down. As soon as your heel touches, straight away coming back up again. And I want to see how many of these in a row you can do before you start to fatigue and you feel like you can't quite get all the way up. That's when you can count how many you can do. So you roughly want a second. Slow down a little bit. On the spot, 10 times, hopping on one leg, compare it to the right. And when you do it, what I'm looking for on this one is a bit of everything. I want you to start at the pelvis, the hips, see what's happening. As you land each time, are you able to stay nice and level? Is the pelvis dropping down again like the knee bend?
Yes, but like I said, it's not
That's
always.
the first thing I look for. And it's generally how it looks quite springy, quite bouncy, or just like landing, heel landing.
Yeah.
Then we're going to turn the ankle all the way in as far as you can, and then slowly control it all the way out, all the way in again. So this is going to, you should feel it a little bit through kind of inside the shin area.
Go on, Jess. Okay, when you're doing that, that's the hot chocolate recipe.
Yes, the best hot chocolate you could ever have. 3 scoops of Cadbury's hot chocolate, warm milk, warm it up in the microwave, take it out, top it up with hot water, boiling hot water, 5 marshmallows, cream and 5 chocolate buttons, and they melt at the bottom and it's beautiful. Thank me later.
Good. You should start to feel that through standing leg. Squeeze hard at the top, keep my arms above head.
A quick summary and a recap of my weekend at the Training Focus Camp. I absolutely loved the weekend. I learnt a whole heap of stuff, not just from the training perspective, but also kind of rehab, prehab stuff with injury prevention, the biomechanics stuff. The training stuff was really interesting, and there was certainly food for thought for me to take away. I would say that the weekend is suitable for any runner, no matter what your level. And I do think that there's something that we can all learn on that weekend. And I think that implies if you've got a coach or if you're self-coached, definitely if you are self-coached and you're kind of doing your own thing with your running, it's really informative, really helpful. And if you do have a coach, I do think that the knowledge shared from other coaches is really helpful and really insightful. And it just helps you gain a better understanding of maybe why your training is structured the way it is, why you're doing specific stuff in your blocks. It is a full-on weekend, but everything is catered for, everything is thought of. So obviously your accommodation is included, all your food is included, a whole heap of snacks is included. I can tell you something, I definitely did not go hungry that weekend. The food was really good, and it's all catered by the hotel. It's pretty full on, it's fun, you share the experience with like-minded people, and I'd say, yeah, all abilities it would be suitable for. Like I said at the beginning of this video, I missed one of the runs because I was on a recovery week from a marathon, so there was no need for me to really go out on the runs and push things too much. But that was absolutely fine. So if you can't do the runs, that's fine. If you're at a different pace to the rest of the group, that's fine as well. There are paces to cover that. But yeah, really good weekend, really enjoyed it. If there's anything that you want to know about the weekends that I haven't covered, then please do leave a comment below. Obviously, I haven't gone into too much detail with the information that was shared by the coaches there, because otherwise these vlogs would be hours and hours long. But for everything that you think that you'd want to know about running and about injury prevention and biomechanics, it's definitely a really good weekend to go on.